The applause hit me like a punch I had to pretend didn't hurt. I stood near the back of the glass-walled conference hall, the cheap champagne sweating in my hand, and watched my idea being celebrated under someone else's name. The spotlight belonged to him, Marcus Reed, senior project manager, serial charmer, thief in a tailored suit. My slide deck was behind him, my charts glowing on the 30-foot screen, my words tumbling effortlessly out of his mouth as if they'd been born there. I had spent 3 months of 12-hour nights building what the company was now calling Project North Star, and every data point up there carried a piece of my life I'd never get back. He looked so relaxed, joking with the crowd, flashing that grin that made executives laugh louder than they needed to. "Teamwork makes the dream work," he said, lifting his glass. The room responded like a choir, and I could almost hear my own pulse through the noise. Somewhere behind me, someone whispered, "That guy's a genius." I almost laughed. A genius at theft, maybe. I wasn't angry yet. Anger is too simple. What I felt was a cold, careful clarity, a sense that something irreversible had just happened, and that the only way to survive it was to make sure no one ever forgot how he'd done it. When the speech ended, Marcus stepped down from the stage and was swallowed by handshakes. My boss, Dana Whitfield, clasped his shoulder and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Outstanding work, Marcus. This is the kind of leadership we promote around here." I saw the flash in Marcus's eyes, that hungry satisfaction of a man who thinks the world owes him admiration. Then her words registered, "We promote." That was the moment I knew the betrayal wasn't accidental. He'd already lined up his reward. I slipped out before anyone noticed. The hallway smelled like industrial cleaner and stale coffee, but the quiet was a relief. I walked until I found the emergency stairwell and sat on the bottom step, still holding the untouched champagne. The glass had gone warm. I stared at the bubbles collapsing one by one and realized I hadn't even congratulated him, hadn't smiled, hadn't clapped. People would remember that. Good. Let them. Outside, Boston's evening traffic roared against the windows. I texted my wife, "Running late. Don't wait up." Then I opened my laptop right there on the stair and scrolled through the folder where every draft of North Star still lived. Metadata doesn't lie. Every document, every iteration, every timestamp, all created by me, weeks before Marcus ever touched them. He must have copied the files when I left my drive plugged in after our meeting. I even remembered the day, the Friday before deadline, when he'd stayed behind to polish the visuals. I'd been stupid enough to trust that line. The stairwell door creaked open. I snapped the laptop shut. It was Leah Cho, one of the data analysts. She hesitated when she saw me. "Hey, you okay?" "Fine," I said. "Just getting some air." Her eyes flicked to the glass in my hand. "Looks like you're drowning in it instead." I almost told her right there. Instead, I asked, "You worked on the projections, right? The resource allocation charts?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah. Marcus wanted me to send him the raw numbers last month before you finalized the report." "Why?" "Just curious," I said, trying to sound casual. "Did he say what for?" "He said he was double-checking calculations." She frowned. "Was something wrong?" "Nothing," I lied. "Thanks." When she left, I sat there another 10 minutes. The idea that had been taking shape in my mind since the applause started began to sharpen. Revenge doesn't begin with rage. It begins with evidence. I would collect everything, quietly. Then, when the company believed in his genius the most, I'd let the truth show itself. Not whispered rumors. Proof. I didn't need to destroy him. I just needed him to destroy himself with my help. That night I drove home through the rain with the radio off. The city lights blurred into streaks on the windshield, like the world itself was smearing. My wife was asleep when I got in. The house smelled of lavender detergent and the lasagna she'd left warming in the oven. Normal life waited patiently, unaware that I had just declared war. I ate in silence, opened my laptop again, and started duplicating every relevant file to an external drive. Then I created a new folder, hidden deep inside a directory no one would think to check, and named it simply North Star Truth. By midnight, I had everything copied. The rain had stopped, leaving the street outside silver and quiet. I sat back, staring at the blinking cursor on a blank note where I began typing out a list. Confirm when Marcus accessed my files. Find email evidence. Any forwarded attachments. Talk to Leah again, carefully. Check security camera policy. Wait. Be patient. The last point I underlined twice. By the following Monday, the banners from the gala were gone, but Marcus's grin had only grown larger. He strolled through the open-plan office with a coffee mug that read, "World's Best Leader," a gift from someone who wanted to stay close to the sun. Every few steps, he clapped someone on the shoulder, tossing out lines like, "Great energy, team. Let's keep that North Star momentum going." I kept my eyes on my monitor and counted the clicks of his shoes until he disappeared into Dana's office. Corporate life has a smell: burnt coffee, carpet cleaner, and quiet resentment. It hung heavier than usual that week. Every time Marcus opened his mouth in a meeting, I felt that same pressure in my chest that I'd felt during the applause. He didn't just take my work, he started rebuilding his kingdom on top of it. "Let's optimize cross-department collaboration," he'd say, then point to my spreadsheets as examples. Dana nodded approvingly. I typed the minutes like a ghost. Leah stopped by my desk one afternoon, setting a printout on top of my keyboard. "Check the metadata on these," she whispered. 2 folders, side by side, one named North Star Final, the other Marcus V2. Both created within minutes of each other, the same day he'd polished my visuals. I looked up at her. She didn't smile. "You didn't hear it from me," she said, then walked away. That evening I sat alone long after everyone left, the hum of servers filling the silence. I opened the IT portal and stared at the access logs, lines of timestamps and usernames. Each entry felt like a heartbeat in someone else's body. When I found the first record under Marcus's credentials, the evidence glowed like a flare in the dark. Downloaded 11:42 p.m., uploaded 12:07 a.m. He hadn't even bothered to hide it. I printed the log, folded it twice, and slipped it into an unmarked envelope. My hands were steady again. The days blurred into a pattern of polite hatred. He'd pass by my desk with that same actor's warmth. "Hey, champ, you good on those projections?" "Always," I'd answer, smiling just enough to keep him comfortable. He thought I was defanged. At lunch, he liked to hold court near the big window, telling stories about turning chaos into clarity. People laughed because laughter is cheaper than honesty. I sat 2 tables away, hearing my own phrases come out of his mouth, lines from the proposal I'd written. "Data tells stories if you listen right." That one earned applause. I'd written it at 3 in the morning with a half-cold burrito beside my keyboard. By the 3rd week, the company newsletter announced the upcoming Innovation Summit, complete with Marcus's face under the headline, "The Mind Behind North Star." The tagline read, "When Vision Meets Leadership." I almost laughed out loud at the phrasing. Vision? The only vision he'd had was looking over my shoulder. That night, when the office emptied and cleaning carts rattled in the halls, I found myself in the server room with George, the night shift sysadmin. He was half my age, all caffeine and sarcasm. "Need something fixed?" he asked. "Just verifying backup integrity," I said. "Dana wants to make sure nothing gets lost before the summit." He shrugged. "Sure. What am I looking for?" "Access logs for North Star, the month before launch." George clicked through folders. "You hunting for leaks or something?" "Something like that." 5 minutes later, he handed me a flash drive. "Everything you need. Don't tell Dana I'm this helpful." "I won't," I said. "She'll think you're efficient." He laughed and went back to his energy drink. On the drive home, I kept the flash drive in my jacket pocket like contraband. When I reached my street, I parked but didn't go in. The porch light glowed through the rain, but I stayed in the car listening to the engine tick as it cooled. My reflection in the windshield looked calm, maybe too calm. That was the first night I realized revenge can feel a lot like focus. Friday morning brought the next insult. Marcus dropped a bottle of 12-year whiskey on my desk. "For all your groundwork, man," he said, voice honey smooth. "Couldn't have done it without you." The bottle gleamed under the fluorescent lights. I looked up at him, matching his grin. "You should keep the receipt," I said. "You might need to expense it." He laughed, oblivious. Always the practical one. Then he leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Don't take all this too seriously, okay? Leadership's about perception. You'll get your turn." He patted my shoulder and walked away. Perception. That word stuck to me the rest of the day like static. If the company worshipped perception, then I would simply redefine what they saw. A week later, the spark finally hit gasoline. During a budget review, Marcus presented numbers I hadn't seen. When Dana questioned an inconsistency, he turned smoothly toward me. "Probably just a data entry slip on Alex's side," he said. "Happens when we're moving fast." Everyone looked at me. I opened my mouth, then shut it. Denying it would make me defensive. Defending myself would make me small. So I nodded once. "I'll recheck." Dana moved on. The meeting ended. Marcus winked at me as we filed out. That night I didn't just stay late. I stayed until dawn. The cleaning crew finished. Lights went off one by one, and still I sat there, writing outlines in a notebook until the paper tore under my pen. By sunrise, I had the bones of a plan. Nothing illegal, nothing that could touch me, but devastating in its simplicity. The Innovation Summit was 3 weeks away. Every executive, every client, every investor would be watching a massive screen in a rented downtown hall. Marcus would present his vision, and at precisely the moment he reached the slide titled Authorship and Timeline, the truth would appear. Not from me, from the system itself. I closed the notebook, slid it into my drawer, and whispered the same word 3 times until it lost meaning. Perception, perception, perception. The week before the Innovation Summit, the office felt like a stage under construction. Banners with the company logo leaned against walls, screens flickered with unfinished slides, and Marcus moved through it all like a man rehearsing applause. Everyone called him Sir now. I let them. It would make the silence afterward louder. I spent those days where no one looked, in the server room, in the AV storage closet, in the half-empty training lab where outdated laptops waited for recycling. Every corner hid a piece of what I needed. The system running the summit presentation was cloud-based but mirrored locally for redundancy. One mirrored folder was accessible to content support, a generic credential used by interns and vendors. George had shown me months earlier that the password was never changed. I didn't need to hack anything. I just needed to upload a file with a timestamp that would quietly overwrite Marcus's final deck at the right moment. The trick was timing. The summit would stream from a master laptop on stage, mirrored on 2 giant screens. If I replaced one embedded image, the slide labeled Authorship and Timeline, with a transparent overlay carrying the metadata of every original document, the projector would reveal my name in the corner when that slide appeared. No pop-ups, no fireworks, just a quiet, undeniable fact glowing in 10-foot letters. Created by Alexander Hale, March 17th, 07:42 p.m. The line of truth he had erased would reappear in front of the entire board. I practiced the swap twice at midnight. The first attempt failed. The mirrored drive didn't refresh instantly. The second time, the new file appeared exactly 4 minutes after upload, the same lag I would have during the live show. I logged the timing, cleaned every trace, and left the office before dawn. By Tuesday, Marcus had his speech memorized. Keep slides clean, smile during Q&A, end with the quote about innovation, Dana told him. I sat 3 chairs away, invisible. When the meeting ended, Marcus turned toward me with that managerial warmth he used like perfume. "You'll be at the summit, right?" "I wouldn't miss it," I said. He mistook it for support. Friday arrived heavy with humidity and expectation. The convention hall smelled of stage lights and freshly printed programs. Marcus wore a navy suit that probably cost half my monthly salary. I wore gray and carried a small backpack containing the one flash drive that mattered. The first half of the event blurred by. Marketing showcases, partner demos, polite laughter. Then Dana stepped to the microphone. "Our final presentation, the visionary leadership behind Project North Star. Please welcome Marcus Reed." The applause hit again, just like that night at the gala. I felt it pass over me like wind. Marcus began confidently, pacing across the stage, voice perfectly modulated. The big screen behind him scrolled through my charts, my phrasing, my design choices. Each line tightened the knot in my stomach, but also confirmed that everything was still in place. When he reached the midsection break for questions, I slipped to the tech desk at the back. The intern there was busy adjusting audio levels. "Need to run a file check," I said, flashing the vendor badge I'd borrowed from George. The intern nodded, grateful for help. I plugged in the drive, copied over the replacement image, and triggered a sync. 3 minutes 40 seconds later, the system confirmed file updated successfully. The countdown began in my head. I returned to my seat just as Marcus moved toward his final section. "Innovation," he said, "isn't about who starts the fire. It's about who carries the torch." The audience murmured approval. He clicked the remote. The slide changed. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, in the lower right corner of the giant screen, a thin gray line faded into view, almost like a watermark. People might have ignored it, until the auto-zoom in his animation magnified the slide to full resolution. The metadata tag expanded with it, created by Alexander Hale. The room went silent. Marcus kept talking for 3 more words before he noticed the shift in faces. He turned, saw it, and froze. Dana's brow furrowed. The AV technician tapped frantically at his tablet, but the feed was already live to the internal stream. The projection lingered there for 6 long seconds, enough for every phone camera in the front row to capture it. Marcus tried to laugh it off. "Looks like our system picked up an old draft," he said, voice cracking slightly. But the tag was too clear, the audience too awake. Someone whispered my name, then another. Dana stepped forward, confusion giving way to calculation. "Alexander Hale," she repeated, reading the line herself. "Is that—" I stood. "Yes," I said, loud enough to carry. "That's the original author record. Every file Marcus used was created from my drafts." No anger, no shouting, just statement. The microphone picked it up through the hall's quiet. Cameras turned. The moment stretched, fragile and absolute. Then the whispering started. First a few, then dozens. The applause didn't come this time. Marcus muttered something to Dana, but she was already signaling the tech team to cut the feed. Too late. The damage was done. The truth had been projected 20 feet high for nearly 10 seconds. An eternity in a world that lives on screenshots. The silence after the feed cut was heavier than any applause could have been. You could almost hear the electricity humming in the cables above the stage. Dana stood frozen halfway between me and Marcus, her hand still raised from signaling the technician. People were whispering my name now, not loud, but insistent, like wind moving through dry grass. Marcus tried to smile. "Folks, little tech glitch there," he said into the microphone, but his voice betrayed him. The practiced warmth had drained out. "Our system must have pulled an older version." "Then show them the new one," someone in the front row said. It was the CFO. He wasn't smiling. Marcus hesitated, tapped at the clicker, but nothing changed on the giant screen. The gray watermark still hung there, faint but merciless. The tech team had killed the feed entirely. The next slide never loaded. He looked toward Dana for rescue. She didn't move. I could have stayed quiet. I'd already won. But something in me wanted to hear the truth out loud. I stepped down the aisle until I was close enough that my voice didn't need a microphone. "That metadata wasn't a glitch," I said. "It's from the master files created on my workstation, weeks before Marcus touched the project. IT logs confirm it. If anyone wants verification, they can ask George from Systems. He's in the back." Dozens of heads turned. George looked terrified but nodded. The confirmation spread through the room faster than sound. You could feel it. The collective recognition that they'd been applauding the wrong man for months. Marcus tried to laugh again, softer this time, like maybe he could charm his way out. "Alex, come on, man, we collaborated. You know that." "No," I said, still calm. "You copied. Collaboration would have meant my name stayed on the file." Dana finally spoke. "Is this true?" He started to answer, but the words tangled. He looked at the audience instead, searching for an ally and finding none. This is being blown out of proportion, he managed. We worked together, and I polished the presentation, that's all. Leah rose from her seat near the middle rows. I sent you the raw numbers at your request, she said clearly. You said Alex needed help verifying data. Then the folder with his name disappeared. The tension broke like a snapped wire. Several executives whispered to each other. Someone from HR began typing notes on a tablet. Marcus's face lost its color. He looked smaller suddenly, the confident posture collapsing under invisible weight. Dana exhaled through her nose. Marcus, step off the stage. He didn't move. Dana, please, this is a misunderstanding. Now! He walked down the steps, still clutching the remote like it could reverse time. As he passed me, he hissed, You think this fixes anything? It already did, I said. He pushed through the side door into the service corridor. The sound of it closing was almost gentle, but everyone heard it. Dana turned back to the crowd, trying to reclaim order. Let's take a 15-minute break, she said. Then we'll resume with our next speaker. Nobody clapped. People stood slowly, murmuring, checking phones. I sat again, the adrenaline finally catching up, hands trembling in my lap. Screenshots were already circulating. A manager near me whispered, It's everywhere. I didn't feel triumph exactly, more a strange stillness, as if the world had finally realigned after months of being off balance. When the break started, Leah walked up to me. You planned that? She asked. Only the part that told the truth, I said. She smiled, small but genuine. You just made history in this company. Maybe, I said. Or an HR case study. Dana approached next. The crowd parted instinctively. She studied me for a long moment before speaking. You had proof all along? Yes. Why not bring it to me first? Because you would have handled it quietly, I said. And quiet was what he counted on. She didn't argue. We'll talk Monday, she said, and left it at that. When the summit finally resumed, the energy was gone. Every speaker looked nervous, glancing at the screen as if it might betray them next. I sat through the rest because leaving early would have looked like guilt. By the time the closing remarks ended, my phone was full of unread messages, some congratulatory, some cautious. You really did it. Careful, man. HR's going to spin this. Drinks tonight? I didn't reply to any. Outside, the late afternoon sun was too bright, the air thick with the smell of food trucks and exhaust. Reporters waited near the doors, hoping for comment about the metadata incident. I walked past them without a word and kept walking until the noise of the city swallowed everything. By Monday morning, the company pretended the summit had never happened. The banners came down, press releases disappeared, and an email marked confidential hit every inbox. Pending internal review regarding Project North Star presentation. No names, no blame, just silence. But silence in a corporate building is never neutral. It's the sound of fear moving through cubicles. When I arrived at my desk, the chair opposite mine was empty. Marcus's mug, the one that said "World's Best Leader," was gone. A thin square of dust marked where it had sat. That, more than any announcement, told me everything I needed to know. Within an hour, Dana called me into her office. She looked tired, not angry, not impressed, just tired in the way of people forced to rewrite history faster than it's being lived. Marcus resigned, she said. I said nothing. She waited, then added, We'll issue a corrected credit statement for North Star. Your name will be attached moving forward. But, let me be honest, you won't get the director role. Not right now. The board doesn't want any more noise. That was expected. The company wanted the truth cleaned up, not celebrated. Still, I nodded. Fine, I said. I didn't do it for a title. She studied me a moment longer. I hope not, she said quietly, because titles change nothing here. People do. For the first time in months, I believed she meant it. The following weeks felt oddly calm. HR interviews, statements, polite thank yous from executives who didn't know where to look. Leah got promoted to lead analyst. George received an official commendation for system integrity support. I got time, time to breathe, time to sleep through a night without replaying slides in my head. News spread in ways the company couldn't contain. A few local business blogs picked up the story. Employee metadata exposes plagiarism at tech firm. They never used our real names, but everyone inside knew. Marcus vanished from LinkedIn for a while, then reappeared months later consulting for a smaller firm out west. Sometimes his name shows up in group emails by mistake, still cached in the system. I delete it without reading. One Friday evening, long after the building emptied, I walked into the conference room where it had all started. The same place he'd pitched my idea. The lights were dim. The glass table reflected the city skyline like another world upside down. I thought of the applause, the humiliation, the long nights in that stairwell. Revenge had felt sharp and pure then, but standing here now, it felt quieter. Not wrong, not regretted, just complete. Like finishing a difficult equation and knowing the result balances on both sides. Leah stopped by the door. "Still working?" she asked. "Not this time," I said. "Just remembering." She leaned against the frame, arms folded. "You know they'll rewrite this story eventually. Make it sound like a lesson about teamwork." "They can write what they want," I said. "The data doesn't forget." She smiled. "Neither do people." We left together, the automatic lights flicking off behind us one row at a time, like the building itself was exhaling. Outside, the air smelled of rain and asphalt. Somewhere downtown, a siren wailed, distant and fading. I looked up at the glass tower reflecting the last orange of sunset and thought about how fragile perception really is, how easy it is to bend truth until it snaps back. For the first time in a year, I didn't feel small.